Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schneed, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about an artist that I have loved for over 4 decades now. He was in the business for well over 5 decades, and he's known as an actor, as a comedian, as a songwriter, as a performer. He was a Renaissance man, and of course I'm talking about the late, great Neil Innes. Now when I say that name, you're going to go, oh, Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, or maybe I say Neil Innes and you say, oh, Python, and maybe I say Neil Innes and you say the Rutles, and guess what? You are right. Neil Innes was all that and a whole lot more, and I'm going to focus on the CD catalog. I don't have absolutely everything, but I have a pretty decent amount of stuff here to go through, so I'm going to try to go through it rather quickly, if you don't mind. I like to start these episodes out by telling you how I got into the artist, and I think it was just by osmosis. I mean, we were big Beatles fans, so of course, somewhere along the line at some Beatles convention, we saw Magical Mystery Tour, and Neil was a member of the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, and they performed a song on that video called Death Cab for Cutie, which also gave birth to the band name. But at that point, probably when we saw it, we didn't realize that he was a member. I was a kid. I was 10, 11 years old when I saw it. But one of the things that I do remember very distinctly is the Matching Tie and Handkerchief album by Monty Python. Now, this came out in 72. I probably didn't hear it till 74 or something, maybe 75. But there's snippets of 3 songs on this that are instantly catchy, wonderful. They just blew me away. And they're just short little snippets on one of the sketches, and those were written and performed by Neil Innes during his time working with Python. Now, he was also on the Live at Drury Lane album, and, this is how I started getting into Neil Innes. I started discovering all that. And then, of course, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He played the minstrel that sings the Sir Robin songs throughout the movie. That's Neil Innes as well. You know what? Let's go back to the beginning here, and I'm going to go through the catalog. We've already talked about the Python album from 1972. So let's hop into the way back machine, and we will go back to Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. The Bonzos were an absurdist, Dada-esque, humorous, circus-like cacophony of sound, and it was comedy, it was vaudevillian, it was so many things, and it was just absolutely mind-numbingly awesome. Now, back when I was a kid, I didn't get it. Maybe I thought it was funny, but as I grew older, I realized that, wow, these guys are nuts in the very best way possible. Now, the band was led by Neil Innes and Vivian Stanshall. Neil Innes was the more straightforward pop songwriter with a flair for the funny, and Viv Stanshall was from up there somewhere, outer space. But their first album, Gorilla, came out in 1967. This is the CD version with loads of bonus tracks on it. Their second album came out in 1968. This is called The Donut in Granny's Greenhouse. Again, more bonus material. Now, the album that I think really caught a lot of people's attention was the Tadpoles album. I mean, those are great albums, but the Tadpoles album caught a lot of attention because it contains the single I'm the Urban Spaceman, which was a Neil Innes song that he wrote and sang, and it was produced by Apollo C. Vermouth, which was a pseudonym for Paul McCartney. There's another Beatles connection here, but this is a fabulously, weirdly wonderful album. That was followed in 1969 by Kynsham, or look, I barely speak English. I don't understand smart people language, but it's Kynsham or Kynsham or whatever. It came out in 1969 as another great Bonzo Dog album. This came out in 1969. After this album, they broke up, and we'll go into what happened right after they broke up, but they were contractually obligated to make one more album, so they went back in the studio in 1972, and they came out with Let's Make Up and Be Friendly. And this was the final album by the original Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Vivian Stanshall had died, and the surviving members of the Bonzos did eventually get back together, and they did a little tour, and they recorded an album, a studio album that came out in 2007. I'm not going to pronounce it. Like I said, I can barely speak English, let alone, a French title or whatever. But yeah, that is Pour l'amour de chant. I don't know. 2007. It's got some great Neil Innes stuff on it. But that was the last official Bonzo Dog Band album, or Bonzo Dog Doodah Band album. As you know, they got commercial. They sold out to the man, and they put out Bonzo Dog Band. But yeah, at heart, they're really the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Now, after the band had originally split in 1969, Neil Innes kind of went in a slightly different direction. He wanted to get away from the humor and focus on the songwriting. Now, this isn't like a straightforward, pretentious album, but it's a really cool album with some Lennon-esque flair to it, some Beatle-esque, plus a little bit of prog, and some great originality. This is Neil Innes and the World, and it's called Lucky Planet. Album came out in 1970. It is a logical progression from Bonzo Dog because it's very creative, and but it's not goofy type stuff. It's just a bunch of good songs that show him stretching out his more serious side. Without getting too serious. Then he and a few members of the Bonzos formed a band with a few members of the Scaffold, including Mike McGear, which was Paul McCartney's brother, and they formed a band called Grimm's. And Grimm's released 2 albums in 1973. One was self-titled, and the other one was called Rock and Duck. This CD contains both of those albums. Now, Neil wasn't the main focus. Neil was one of the cast of characters, but his presence is very, very obvious on this album. Now, Grimm's did record another album called Sleepers. This came out in, I believe, 1976. And this is absolutely fantastic. It's more focused. It still goes in kind of odd directions. One interesting thing about this is these bonus tracks feature demo of the song that eventually became the Rutles, I Must Be in Love. There's like a regular version and then like a quick little piano version. So to my knowledge, this might be the first place that I Must Be in Love appeared, but I'll show you another album that appeared on in just a few moments. But this is the final Grimm's release. Sleepers came out in 1976. Now, Neil was extremely busy. While he was doing all that, he was also working with Python, and he also focused on putting out his first solo album, which is fantastic. It's called How Sweet to Be an Idiot. This is really when I fell in love with the music of Neil Innes, because I thought, this is, when I was a kid growing up, I thought that the Bonzos were too goofy. I thought it was more comedy. This is him mixing the humor and the pop songwriting together and really, really making an impact on my senses. Lots of great stuff on here. This is the latest reissue that has the album plus bonus tracks. Now, here's an interesting thing I want to point out. Now, when I had the import vinyl LP of How Sweet to Be an Idiot, the title track was a stereo version. It was just piano and Neil's vocal coming out of the left or right channel. So it was definitely stereo. When I heard this on CD, it blew my mind because the album, I guess the original album version, featured a full band on How Sweet to Be an Idiot. So it's not just him at the piano. It's a full band arrangement, which blew my mind. I'd never heard it until I got this reissue. Anyway, one of the bonus tracks on here is that piano version, but it's in mono. So, of course, my OCD mind is going, where can I find that stereo piano version of How Sweet to Be an Idiot? And I know that there's probably at least 8 people in this world thinking the same thing, where you can find it on this. They added it as a bonus track on this. It is a remastered. It is that piano version in stereo. That's Music Geek Nerd 101 speak. Now, in 1976, Neil Innes got together with Eric Idle from Monty Python after Python had split, and they did a TV series called Rutland Weekend Television. And Eric Idle wrote all the comedy bits, and Neil Innes would provide the music. So he would pop up and he would be doing songs. And that eventually came out as the Rutland Weekend Songbook. This is the CD version of that, and it contains 2 bonus tracks, but this is filled with more great Neil Innes material. This has the original version of I Must Be in Love. The version that you hear on this album is the same version that they played on Saturday Night Live when Eric Idle hosted it. The very first time the Rutles appeared on American television. That clip was actually taken from Rutland Weekend Television. And this is a fun album. There's not a lot of Eric Idle on it. It's mostly Neil Innes. This album features musical assistance from Neil Innes' band FATSO at the time, which featured Billy Bremner, who was later in Rockpile. And I'll talk about them in a little while too. But this is absolutely fantastic. There are 2 bonus tracks. One of the bonus tracks is the same exact I Must Be in Love that's on this album, minus the screaming audience. So it just has Eric Idle introduce the band, silence, and then the song kicks in, and it's fantastic. I actually prefer this version of I Must Be in Love over the one that came out on the Rutles album. In 1977, he released an album called Taking Off, which is featured as this twofer. Another great collection of songs. great pop songs by Neil Innes that is featured on this CD, alongside the 1979 album Innes Book of World Records. This is taken from his BBC TV series, where he performed a lot of his original songs. They put those both on one CD, and that's absolutely great there. That's from 1977 and 1979. Guess what happened in between those albums? Yeah, that's right. The Rutles. Here is the Rhino CD version of that, and this contains everything that was on the original album plus bonus tracks. You've seen this in various forms on CD, I believe, and it's mind-blowing. I remember going to Tower Records the day this came out and just shaking, going, oh my God, because I loved Neil Innes and Eric Idle, but I loved the music of Neil Innes by this time, and I knew that this was going to be a monumental, great record. Before going back to Neil Innes' solo career, I will add that there was another Rutles album that came out called Archaeology, and this is the reissued CD version. I believe it has a couple bonus tracks. And this is less of a Beatles feel because Neil Innes didn't want to write a batch of songs that he was just going to lose the copyright on. But this is still a great album because it's Neil Innes, and Neil Innes is a great songwriter. Remember that Book of Records from 1979? Well, Off the Record is a continuation of that. I believe this features more songs from his Innes Book of World Records BBC series. This originally came out as a 2 LP set. And there's a lot of great song parody type things on here. There's a song called Godfrey Daniel that sounds like it could have been early Elton John. And he does a couple homages and parodies and stuff. He was great at that, but he was great at writing fantastic songs. In my mind, Neil Innes was first and foremost a great songwriter and a great singer and a great musician. The comedy, the acting, that all comes second for me. He's just a tremendous talent. Anyway, more Neil Innes stuff ended up in this 4 CD set called Recollections Les Ducks box set. And this has CDs of material from Off the Record and other places, and it has a DVD of performances, and it's just fun. It's almost like a greatest hits of some of the stuff I've talked about, but not quite, because they're alternate versions. But this is really something you need to get. If you don't own anything by Neil Innes, get everything, including this. Now, in 2005, he released an album called Works in Progress. I unfortunately do not have a copy of that on CD. I've been searching for it, but from what I understand, if you go to neilinnes.media, then quite possibly that CD will be getting reissued. In fact, I will leave that neilinnes.media at the end because it does have some of the CDs I've been talking about, and I'll tell you which ones. Anyway, Neil Innes then had a BBC radio show called In Its Own World, and this is a 2 CD set. This is an album of music, spoken word, and all that stuff. It's the best of his radio shows on BBC. These came out in 2010. In 2014, he got back together with the band that he was recording the Rutland Weekend with, like Billy Bremner and Roger Reddig and stuff. And they did a tour called Posterity where they do Rutles tracks mostly and some solo tracks as well. It's a 2 CD set, and that came out in 2014. In 2019, he released a brand new studio album called Nearly Really. And this is just a continuation of a great songwriter with a great sense of humor, a great sense of melody. And the songs are varied, just like what you would expect from a Neil Innes record. And this is just a fabulous record. And unfortunately, Neil passed away just a few months after this album came out. Now, let me tell you about the neilinnes.media website. You can buy t-shirts. You can buy this album, Nearly Really. You can buy the 4 CD Recollections box set, and you can buy a couple rare Rutles CDs. Both of them contain demos and raw and live release mixes and stuff. So I recommend you to go there. I don't have those other 2 Rutles releases, but I will eventually get those. But anyway, that is it. I wanted to talk about Neil Innes. I've been meaning to do this for quite a while. I'm a huge fan. So anyway, that is it. I appreciate you letting me sit here and chat about Neil Innes and all his various musical projects. Remember to head over to neilinnes.media, buy Nearly Really, and whatever else they've got up there. Like I said, they have t-shirts. Anyway, that's it. I appreciate you. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that bell for future videos. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.